Welcome to Mindful Drawing. I'm Robert, and I'll be your guide on this meditation practice that enters a space of mindfulness through the act of drawing. This week, we'll take our inspiration from a favorite set of visual diagrams of mine, the work of naturalist Ernst Haeckel. For the 19th century naturalist, found this book recently while traveling in Rhode Island. I'm in Providence, a small bookstore specializing in the fun things of Lovecraft, science fiction, and the occult, and a nice version of his work, often seen as art forms in nature. In publication, this art forms from the abyss, deep sea creatures and entities studied on one of his journeys around the globe to document these species, plants, animals, and the things that live in between. Stuff from long ago that occupies the deep and maybe haunts or inspires our imagination. So if you're interested in looking at a few of these, you'll probably find plenty on the internet, but I encourage you to grab some books because they become these nice drawings of the full parts of a thing. Right, it's look from the outside, it's cut through to the inside, a plan, a section, an elevation in architectural terms. The dimensions, the measurements, the notes of the structures, the geometry, and the form all coming together in a nice composition to play with their living nature on the page. Unfortunately, probably of them maybe were stopped from living to record this information, but it exists now as a thing we can look into and bring to our mind some of the imagination of living creatures. If you followed along last week with the plate or the bowl, we might look at something like this, a bit of a jellyfish, and when turned its other way around, taking on a whole different context. So if you want to take a few moments before you start the exercise, search for a few of Ernst Haeckel's art forms in nature or from the abyss. See if some of them spark a little imagination in you. That'd be great. Otherwise, I'll guide you through the exercise. You can imagine kind of anything from anywhere as it just takes a bit of a form from its profile and then works into that thickness of its edges and imaginations of its details. Maybe the simplest thing you could bring to mind that we've all experienced is through cooking or preparing a meal. You may have cut a pepper, bell pepper, hot pepper, whatever it may be, and that slice through the pepper reveals its outer skin and its interior definition to the voids where the seeds and other things live. We'll play a game between all those zones, tracking from outside to inside to give thickness and material dimension, tracking again from outside to inside to cap it off to being a plausibility to that organism, and then adding articulation to the surface. I'm going to use pen just on some Bristol here, but whatever you'd like to draw with, pen, pencil, charcoal, marker, all things should work well. Any kind of paper is totally fine. The exercise will take about 25 minutes to really warm up, get a sense for the form, and then dive into it a little while and see what we can bring to life from the page. So go ahead and gather your supplies, establish your space, and let's draw together. To warm up and get the ideas flowing, what we might imagine is something between plant and animal, something like a vase on a table, somewhere in between where it has a clear, defined outer kind of profile that might look a little more like a flower or something like that, or a little more like a jellyfish, but anything there would just be a kind of starting place. So starting to imagine something that might have a shape to it. If I do like a little clover trefoil condition, and this could be autonomous and fully like enclosed, like something moving there on the page, or it could kind of end perhaps a bit more like a plant at the bottom and branching out. Maybe we'll play with a few different shapes, but the gist of the exercise to get a sense of it is once you have a rough profile going on there, parts of it we could give thickness to by just giving another edge. Maybe that edge isn't always perfectly parallel, and that denotes that there's maybe something in here that is the cell, the wall, the skin, the layer that changes inside from outside. And if we're cutting an object that's more complex or round, I may experiment with this. Then that cut may cut through part of it, like it's happening here, but then part of it we may see in the background and have to find the way to blend those two. But all these things are just possibilities for how we denote that there's something made of material that we're going to cut through and see. You could think of it very much like a pepper. When you're cooking, just cutting straight to the center of that, you might get some areas that are very clearly opening holes on the inside, and some areas that we see far to the back. But we'll walk through that part slowly, so as you warm up the mind and get some ideas, playing with a few shapes, whether that's something very kind of like more bulb or flower-like, very central, that finds its way to kind of really think petally. We can have some floweriness, maybe something more branch-like that reaches out. A more complex profile. Something more jellyfish-like, covering a space. Ghost from Pac-Man or something. Those are kind of our general directions on things, and as we work, we could always add on more, causing them to have foreground and background, becoming more complex, or really keep them nice and simple and think about they form on the inside. So like the drawing I showed very quickly, then it might have a shell to it, to flesh, and then on the interior, we can imagine some other things growing, maybe bringing little tentacles or whatever reaching out, and all that will develop over the drawing to see what you find. But after sketching a few forms, maybe just a nice broccoli form here, something like that I'll go with, and see where it takes us. We'll move into the larger exercise. If any of these give a little bit of an imagination of something, and take a moment to let that come into the mind, come into play there. Keep sketching on a sketchbook or notebook page as we prepare to enter the longer form exercise, seeing what shapes, profiles, figures come to mind that have that organic, natural feel, but a contained, clear object. Somewhere plant, somewhere animal, in between. Those things of the sea, old things. You bring that connection to these alien other worlds, present here on our place, but separated from us millions of years, many of miles. A curiosity and fascination, something a bit unknown no matter how far we dissect it, and then an opening place for the imagination to play and explore. As you feel ready, I'll take a couple of deep breaths, just to center the body and center the mind here. Let the hands sit quiet for just a moment. Breathe in to your full capacity, stretching out and relaxing as it flows from the body. The next inhalation, noticing the left, right, forward, and back expansion. And the relaxing setting of the spine, the hips, the shoulders into the emptiness made by the exhalation. One more deep breath, this time focusing on the expanding up and down. Stretching out that spine and sipping in a little more at the top. And then letting the shoulders, the rib cage settle, relaxed into the space provided by the exhalation. And turn the attention of the eyes to the paper, the attention of the hands, space, available there, and to the instrument you choose to draw with. I think I'll use a pen a bit. It'll show up nice, and I like the movement of the ink. Pencil would be totally fine. Marker, anything you'd like to work with. And somewhere, maybe kind of centered in the paper, trace out with the hand a little bit of the form you might like to work with. That 3-branch kind of broccoli shape is in my mind, so I'll go there. See if we can't give it a little floweriness, sea creatureness to it, but with a sense of where you'll be working, the hand already mapping into the mind the territory of drawing. We can sketch our way to a thing. The first line's light, denoting the perimeter that may change over time, so we're not tied to them, the details. I'll start with a little bit of the bottom, the grounding. Give some attention to your feet, your grounding center, or your seat, whatever's kind of holding you in place at the moment. Bring attention to that space on the page, somewhere center lower. Maybe we'll just trace out a little bit of a grounding or rounding shape. Something to set aside, maybe a little light, a little timid or temporary to start with. Attention to that line that just gives the beginning of something on the paper. And for me, many of these sea creatures kind of have radial lobes to them. So I'm going to bring a series of just little kind of bumps, little fingers reaching down as a starting place in that first form, slowly bringing a little more definition to it, capping off one terminus of the object. And before we go deeper into details, things might trickle in as you work around, start working out and up. A bit of a stem or a branch, and giving things some fun shapes to them. That expansion and contraction, possibility for vessels holding shape. But still just that branch reaching out a little, splitting from the base trunk. Maybe a mushroom comes to mind a little bit as well. A sea slug. Could be many visual metaphors prompting in the mind. Loosely working the shape, feeling out the curves. It can always be adjusted as we work and more things come to the mind, to the imagination. Again, yours may take other forms, but this one here, I think will have also a central, similar 3 parts that we see stack starting to form. A little poofier and flowier for that sea creature feel rather than the terrestrial plant feel. And at the end of each arm, perhaps something else to terminate it, something self-similar but different. One end rounding, reaching like our toes on our feet, the other end branching and extending like the fingers of our hands. So perhaps these have a little kind of floral expansion, branching out, capped with the same little undulation of waves at the edges, the fingers and the toes. These common elements, extension towards the edges, becoming lighter, things that reach and sense and notice the environment, and things that hold and support structure. And then work our way around, getting some bit of completeness. This profile, a snapshot, perhaps in the dark, of the outline of something. We can now use it to begin to imagine the layers of stories to this organism. Some parts slice through like the pepper to see what takes place inside. Other parts reveal in the background to show us how it looks to the eye. We'll begin on one side or the other, since it's generally symmetrical, imagining a cut through the center of a pepper, some lobes in the back, and some lobes cut on the sides. I'll use the sides as a starting point for that sectioned view to the interior, knowing that it's mostly the walls of the outside, so somewhere around the bottom, someplace the thickness begins, wherever that slice hit the roundness, and it works along the edges, generally parallel-ish in this fluid context. So as we start this journey around to decide where thickness might be, where inside and outside might be separated, we can move nice and slow and even with the breath, and take opportunities to play with that thickness. Sometimes consistent, sometimes reaching inwards or reaching outwards. So we'll guide a series of slow breaths and segments to the journey as you feel ready, taking a nice inhalation to start at that predefined point near the bottom where things have flipped from outside to inside. And on the exhalation, moving slowly along the edge, noticing the breath empty, and perhaps at points of curvature or just at the places where the breath needs to cycle. We take a moment to redirect and allow for something to take a little shape difference there. Return to the breathing and redirect. Keeping the movement slow and easy, finding your rhythm. For reaching into space and returning to the edge of space. If the curvatures become complicated, feel free to readjust, take a new position, and start again with that cycle of breathing in and tracking slowly through the exhalation until the next suggestion of breath creates a small anomaly and then works its way back. And likely, if this object is a bit round as you kind of reach towards the end somewhere, just like the beginning, it will cap itself, turn from inside to outside, and then get a little outline of something along there, a little worm that we might retrace. The same sensations of the breath, slowly in, slowly moving the pen, gently exhaling, maintaining consistency. Making a good full pass around, both to sense what our first journey creates and bring a little emphasis, thickness to the curve, the difference from something seen on a surface, something cut to reveal what's within. The first one, getting the sense of things. And there'll probably be a few more, maybe a similar aspect on the symmetrical side, a similar aspect across the side of the vessel, wherever some interiority might take shape. And then go start at the other end of this branch and work on the other side, leaving the opening at the end free, but explore anything with your own object. And breathing in with the starting point established, rounding from outside to inside, and following the waves of the breath. Slowly moving with the pen or pencil, just near to the point of so slow it feels a little uncomfortable. Real chance for that hand-eye connection to merge with the cycles of breathing until you reach another ending, wrapping back from inside to outside, tracing along, breathing at the even rate, emphasizing that cut-through material. Feeling the lightness of the breath. And then taking a moment to look and see that differentiation that begins to happen where something feels inward and something feels very much outward to the paper. If you're tracking along with a similar object, I'm going to bring a little connection here in the middle as if just a small part of that branch was cut. So just allow a small emphasis of shape to take place there. And we can move to the other side, move a little bit more smoothly, a little bit more to pace that feels good after the breath well established, and the visual connection between inside and outside established, but keeping a similar character. I'll work around my left side here, tracking the same inhalation to begin, and smooth series of breaths that work around, occasionally bringing change to the edge and variation on those same cycles of breath that guide the hand. Retracing the steps inside to outside, outside around to inside, emphasizing material, thickness, little anomalies and jitters of the hand becoming parts of the organism on the page. You can add any of these cuts and delineations anywhere around the piece. Feel free to continue to play and explore a little bit, breathing in and out as a guide. Your eye may find patterns, or things just end up where they end up on the cycles of the breath. But at the end of whichever material closure you're working through, as you take that final wrap around the profile, bringing that clear delineation between inside of something and outside of something, the heavy line. You can add a little texture or shape to things, perhaps starting In the background, there are little nooks and crannies, these lobes, indentations. You might imagine them tracking towards the interior, tracking a little bit along what is seen before, wrapping that flowery, petally bowl-like shape. And so you have self-similar things, the same general detail, may take a little shape everywhere. At first, just denoting the presence of something in the background, the texture or material of something. Working through the different zones, bringing a little definition, a little detail. And beginning to imagine what might happen inside that vessel that's formed. See what may come to mind. Their branches or structure, veins, circulatory system, maybe little dots, textures of a cell. Again, the pepper may come to mind as a guide, as our terrestrial object of in and out. The little cells that dot its walls, or the veins that carry nutrients. We give depth and roundness, but we can play with these edges, all the way eventually reaching their counterparts. And take some moments to draw into this space, see what comes to mind on the insides. Just to give differentiation between interior, emptiness of exterior, and the wall of material. Looking for consistency, but exploring and experimenting for a few minutes. So just drawing into that empty space within might shape it, take place there. Little marks, little details may spark other motions. Here, some little tendrils reaching out from spots. Maybe little ridges form on the surface, separate inside from outside. Your roots branch and grow down to connect to something below. It could be anything, this imaginary creature forming there. And many places to continue to leak in our imagination to the drawing, perhaps the outside mimicking but changing from the inside on this background piece, bringing greater distinction to the separation of interior and exterior with a little bit of hatching, texturing in those walls between, whether that's abstract, an indication of stuff here, or more literal, a drawing of little cells, filling out some space. All could become our musings on what builds this entity, what holds its form. What gives it presence as a physical fact or thing in the world? A rich landscape forming that could extend out and describe the surface of many creatures of similar form and shape, or could keep digging deeper inwards, tracking more and more spaces down through the folds, the layers, the textures that build any biological entity up and reveal its inner workings and structure. Who knows, any of these combined with a little study of some of the natural geometry and materials that take or give shape to all of these different creatures, you might find a balance of something imagined and something real. And just a starting place for exploring another world from within our mind and using a little inspiration from without out there. As the exercise comes to a temporal close, feel free to keep drawing if you like. Close the eyes and imagine a little bit of what you might have seen here as a glimpse of thinking about still form and what its presence in space may be. Maybe let the body move a little, the shoulders or hips move a little side to side or forward and back, as a reflection of imagining the living side of this imagined space. Taking a couple of nice, full, but relaxed breaths, not overpressuring anything, just noticing the filling out and the emptying from within. Bring your hands together, let them wrap around, flex, bring sensation and pressure back to all parts of the hand after its tight focus. Maybe a little stretch of the fingers, a little clasp and interaction, reaching out to bring all the nerves back to the mind and open the eyes to what's around you, re-engage in your space, enjoy the rest of your day. Well, I'd like to keep going on there, exploring farther and farther into the nooks and crannies, seeing what can be teased out, imagining this unknown organism. And I think after the exercise, getting warmed up and feeling good about it, I'll give myself another 10 or 15 minutes, and hopefully you can find that time too if you found something interesting. Otherwise, maybe you're getting a sense of interiority and exteriority, this delineation between space around us, the space within something, and the material that holds them separate, making an organism, or in my daily stuff, an architecture. If not, if section's a little weird and hard to get to, just try to follow along, tracking lines kind of parallel. Anything will work there. In the end, the drawing becomes what it is, not a representation of an imagination. If you like the exercise, please let me know in the comments below what you found, what organism you created, and how you take this mindfulness practice with you out into the rest of your day or evening. Give it a thumbs up and share with your friends. Subscribe for new videos, usually every Wednesday, covering some new topic of drawing this or that, drawing like this or that, and meditating on the outcomes of those experiences connected between you, the instrument, and the page. Whatever you do for the rest of your day or evening, I hope you enjoy it and draw well. Thank you.